Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to You Tell Me. Um, bitter, bitter episode here. I got my friends Kendall, Mallette, and Anthony Zuniga with me. Um, Fellas, oh, this is brutal. Just brutal. All the anticipation with the way the Pistons came out and played in game 6, backs against the wall on the road. After losing that game 5, the way they did at home, and then to come back in game 6, man, like they just played like that. Coming into this game, I didn't think the Cavs had a chance, let alone to see what we saw today. Pistons, they weren't in it from the jump. I mean, how quickly were they down 15 points? Like the blink of an eye, man. And then they just that spark just wasn't there. Like I can't even really explain what I saw. It was just lifeless. Pistons lose 125-94, ends their season in a game 7 at home. Um, Fellas, Kendall, I'll go ahead and start with you. I want both your immediate reactions to what we saw tonight. We're going to get into a lot of different things about the Pistons and where they go from here, and try to dissect what happened tonight. But man, honestly, I don't know. I don't understand how a team that's built on energy, that feeds off their home crowd, can put on a performance like that. I don't know. I'm baffled, man. Kendall, what are you thinking, man? Like, what did you see tonight?
I think that what you saw tonight was a team whose best player had his lung collapse a couple months ago, and played 7 games against a 8 seed, basically, come back and then try to close out a series where the second best player in your series is a 75-year-old Tobias Harris. I don't. I went into this series fully expecting us to get Cleveland out of there very quickly. Just for full disclosure, I was like 5, 6 games, we're good, we're done. This team is like, they look fine. And then obviously the series played out what it is. Like you mentioned, they came out lifeless tonight. Looked like they like barely wanted to be there. I think that Dan Gilbert bussing those fans in was such a great touch, because it took away part of like that hometown energy you expect going into a game 7, and let Cleveland play with a crowd, which I think helped them get into it. Ultimately, we just came out flat. I mean, but I think that all postseason, this team has kind of been, I was expecting a game like this. You just hope it's not game 7. Like, you're slow starting, you're not necessarily like a great offensive team, and eventually you're going to run into a team who is going to shoot well, who is going to get out in transition, and who's going to make you work. And Cleveland just worked us tonight, and that's why you end up having games like this. Hopefully, you hope to not get embarrassed like this on your home court, but I'm not necessarily surprised either.
Yeah, what do you think, Anthony? What are your
Well,
initial
first,
thoughts here?
first I want to say congratulations because a 60 game number one seed. But I think it was just what I kind of expected. I guess I feel like we've always, like even going into the playoffs, always felt like we were one person or like one foundation away. Like I think just putting all that work on Cade, like it's just so much. Especially like I forgot about that, the collapsed lung. Like adding that to the picture too is like there's just so much work to put on somebody, especially for his first playoff run, like an actual run. Like last year he made the first round, which was great, but to like actually go on a run, it was just a lot. Just like Ant-Man said, like last year, like he just wasn't put in shape. I feel like just Cade had the same thing. It's just like it's different as you keep going deeper, and then you've been in 2 game 7s. Like that's a lot of work to put on one guy. So I feel like I was sad, but I'm like I kind of expected it because I feel like we just been that one missing piece. And then with your second all-star not showing up this whole playoffs, I mean, it kind of was just it was bound to happen. It just was when it was going to happen. I hate that we lost by 20 plus, but I mean from the jump it just seemed like they were just ready to have this game over. Like I didn't see no life from the very beginning. Like from the tip, only the person that looked like they wanted to play was Cade and Asur. After that, everyone was just like, yeah, we're out here. We got to play another game 7. And then it was like, we're just waiting for it to be over. And then with the Dan Gilbert thing, like him putting that crowd out there, they just never, our crowd never had a chance to get behind us because we were down by so much. And then adding the crowd, taking away from that, I just feel like we just were at disadvantage the whole game. But like I said, congratulations on 60 wins. Congratulations on being the first seed. But it's just like you have so much that you still need to do to grow. Like we have a lot of missing pieces. So I'm
Yeah,
happy, but it's kind of what I expected.
I think that's where we're at. Like I think we knew all year this team was playing above what they really were.
Yeah.
And it was exposed tonight. Like when Cade, I mean, you're gonna get all the, oh, is he really is he a superstar? Can he lead a team? Well, he can't put the whole thing on his back.
Correct.
And when
Yeah.
Anybody questioning Cade, like even after the Orlando series, but like especially like what he's had to deal with,
Doesn't
they,
know ball.
yeah, like it's just that's not an opinion worth listening to. And
Yeah.
you like walked away from that series, or like, I wonder if Cade's got it or not. Like, no, clearly he's got the juice. The team just isn't there yet, and I think that the best way, like you just put it, Tom, is like they overachieved. Like they really
Overly.
they overachieved. I honestly, even last year, I felt like they kind of overachieved. Like I think the construction of this roster is not like great, definitely not championship caliber.
No.
And I know we'll probably get into like some roster stuff here in a minute, but just to touch on the Cade thing, Cade is a bona fide superstar, and if you disagree, you're a moron, and I don't want to listen to you talk anyway. So let's just get beyond that.
I think Cade and Thompson are the only foundation that you should build around. I think Thompson still has to build a lot on offensively. But I think those are the two guys that you try to build around. I guess Jenkins, if you're paying him $3, but I mean, those are your two foundations that you should build around them. Find out what your goal, find some more offensive firepower.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little there, Anthony. But look, man, the real deal is like you can't just have like it can't be Cade and a whole bunch of let's hope something good happens because that's essentially what was going on. Like especially in these playoffs, there was no consistent number two, and especially when during the regular season was that consistent number two. It was you could really depend on him, and then for him to just fade away for essentially the entire run here, except for like maybe 2 games. He definitely played well in Game 7 against Orlando, and then he played well last game. But even then, he wasn't like dominant. And now you're looking at, do you give this guy a max? Now he's only 22, but for him to fade away like he did, it's concerning. But players obviously grow, and man, I just can't wrap my head around how this team could show up so well at times, and then just at this point in time when it was so important, everything on the line, it's unfortunate, man.
I mean, like, no, you absolutely can't give Duran a max. Like, that's like, there's no way that you walk into this offseason, but okay, because with the way that the cap is set up in the NBA now, when we talk about like the luxury tax and the curtains and everything, the tax aprons and where you're at, right? Like, you can't give Duran a max because it greatly limits what you can do with the rest of the roster, right? Like the current construction of like the NBA teams, at least like the successful ones, are like 1, maybe 2 max guys, and then like quality role players around them, right? Like you look at Boston, you look at OKC, you look at even a team like the Lakers, right? Like 1 or 2 max guys, and then you have like good role players to fill pieces around there. Right now, you cannot give Jalen Duran a max based off of how he played in the playoffs. I think you give him a great offer, and obviously, like you have the ability to match whatever someone wants to get him. But if there is some team out there who feels so inclined to give Jalen Duran a max off of regular season, and to be fair to Jalen, right, obviously you want to be judged off of 82 games, not off of 14 games. Like I completely understand that, but at the same time, it's like you can't drop off that heavily between your regular season performance and your, like, you weren't even out there basically, like for all intents and purposes, like especially this game, like Jared Allen and Evan Mobley were having their way out there and you did nothing about it. Like you were basically a non-factor in every game. And like I said to open, when you're in a situation where 34-year-old Tobias Harris is the second best player on your team, while you have a budding all-star like player like Jalen Duren, his agent should be pissed. His agent should be
Play
so
himself
mad.
out of a max contract, and
Yeah.
that's so hard to do. Man, like it's because he was up there, he was shining all season, and then to just disappear when it matters the most, it's baffling. But you got to remember, still young, still 22. He and who the
This could
sky
work out
is
to
the
be
limit
like a
there.
Steph Curry situation, right? Like we remember when Steph started his career, he doesn't get to end up with a max deal because of all the injury concerns. Steph
Yeah,
becomes Steph, and then by the time you actually have to pay him a max deal, you've been able to add pieces around it to where now you can really be somewhere, right? That is the most fortuitous outcome for the Jalen Duren situation right now, is that this will be a and we talk about his career when we're looking back on it 10, 15 years from now, we'll say, well, this was just a blip on the radar of an overall great career. But it's hard to just imagine that. And it's because it's also hard to imagine like what happened, right? It's not like he's a perimeter player and he shot really poorly in 2 series, because that can happen, right? We will see guys who are like hot, and then like a Kevin Herter, for example, who is supposed to be like a 40% 3-point shooter, and then he's cold for the year, right? Stuff like that happens. But like Jalen Duren is an interior big who is supposed to be able to get down there, do the dirty work, defend, grab boards, and score in the paint, and you did none of it for 14 games. He might have had one good game in the Orlando series, and if he did, I don't even remember. Like, there's nothing happening there. So it's like, okay, is it a confidence thing? Are you hurt secretly? Were you just nervous? Was the lights too bright? And maybe that's what it is. Sometimes you guys get you find yourself in a situation where you become a little bit more important than you maybe should have been at that time, and that's it is what it is. But it's hard to imagine like what could have caused such a drastic drop between all-star in the regular season to almost a net negative on the court when you were playing in this postseason. So yeah, no max for sure, but we'll see what happens.
yeah. Where you at, Anthony, with Duran right now? Can you explain what the drop off could have been? And I don't want to hear about this Angel Reese stuff, man. That was pretty wild. But maybe in the first round, maybe it was in his head, but that can't have carried over. Like, do you think it's a mental thing? Do you think he just wasn't that good? Do you think he was a beneficiary of the lackluster NBA regular season and the fact that the Pistons were a bunch of tryhards? Like, and then he basically just got exposed in the playoffs. Like, and at what point did the Pistons give up on him? Because JB sure didn't want to give up on him.
Yeah, I don't think you give up on him. I think you give up on paying him a max contract. I mean, yes, I understand he was an all-star, but like we said, we overachieved. I just think that's just what happened. We just overachieved, and then like I think when it had time for like a team to actually sit down and actually like dissect his game, I think he didn't have anything to answer for. I think I think Cleveland and Orlando just have good bigs that just matched up perfectly with him. Wendell Carter is nowhere good, but he was as physical. He just had more heart than he did. I think a lot of bigs just came out and just said, "Hey, you're not that you think you are," and they just showed him. I mean, get granted that Cavs have two All Stars.
Yeah, he's flaming out again. But Kendall, he raises a good point, man. Like Cleveland, their bigs, they just simply outplayed them, man. They outplayed.
Yeah, but like,
What about
that's
why not? Why is Paul Reed not getting the run we think he deserves? Like at least like people are clamoring for him. And JB, he just didn't want to play him. Like he barely had any time tonight, man. Like,
I mean, I think it's in the playoffs, and when you look at like how coaches handle their rotations, I think that there's always going to be I go with the guys who got me here, right? Like we don't want to make big sweeping changes. And it's kind of one of those things that separate like elite coaches from like good coaches, right? Like sometimes you have to be able to take the ebbs and flows of a series and see what you can do with it. I don't necessarily look at like I think that's one of those things to where that's fans getting ahead of like what the core issues is. Paul Reed had good minutes. Absolutely, right? He was a good player on the court. The problem ultimately with Detroit is, and what I think anybody who's been paying attention would say, is that eventually you have to score the basketball, right? Like the basketball has to go in the hoop because you're going to play teams where Evan Mobley or Donovan Mitchell is hitting buzzer beater threes and Evan Mobley is banking things in out of nowhere. And like you're gonna have to be able to hang with some of these teams. And I think that overall, like I don't look at it as like we need to give this person some minutes to this person or whatever the case may be. It's a roster construction issue that if it wasn't going to be, like I think even in the Orlando series, right? Like it was still showing up there, and you can only like rely on holding the other team to season low shooting so many times before eventually they're going to get off on you, and you're going to have to be able to answer that. And I like Reed, but I don't necessarily think that he's like the answer to that. That's just something that like we're all coping and looking for answers, so that's like an easy one to like throw out there.
I think that I don't know, man. I think there's more to it, and I don't understand why we didn't see him more. Because when we saw him, it was in a positive light. Like he's finding ways to score, playing good defense, getting turnovers and blocks, and sparking like these runs and when these comebacks that happened a few different times.
Well, let me ask you
Yeah,
this.
but he's
Star.
not a starter. He's not a vocal point player.
Well, also let me ask you this: does Paul Reed being on the court make them
better than during all playoffs?
But does Paul Reed on being on the court make you like not give Donovan Mitchell so much space on a screen? Does that like help Tobias Harris not shoot 30% or whatever he shot like on the court? Like, does that help Cade be being dead legged and looking like uninterested by the time the second half of the second quarter rolled around? Like, cool, he's out there and like maybe he's gonna give you like a little spark off the bench, but you lost by 30 tonight. Paul Reed is not the difference between losing by 30 and winning a game.
Well, yeah, tonight is a different story. I was talking more in general of who was the more valuable player throughout the first and second round, Duren or Reed?
All together, Duren. Because Duren fits Cade.
Throughout the entire playoffs?
Yes, because no, I mean he should have because he fits more of what Cade wants to do. Paul Reed isn't that big of a guy who's going to space more of that floor for Cade. Cade loves playing the pick and roll game. Paul Reed is not a good pick and roll type of player. So Duren fits Cade's game more, but unfortunately he just didn't show up to play this whole playoffs. Paul Reed just showed us something different because no one was expecting Paul Reed to be Paul Reed. So he came out there and literally just said, I'm just gonna do everything. I'm just gonna come out here, fight hard, get shots up, whatever I can do. I'm just gonna add something because right now we're not getting nothing from our other all-star. But who fits the Pistons how they play? Duren fits them more because he plays physical, he plays big. It's just he wasn't playing like that in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I think also to piggyback off of what you're saying, it would be an insane decision in hindsight to not try to say, hey, this kid has given us a great season so far. I have faith in his ability to turn it around and turn it up for us, right? You can't because I think that you it as a coach, you kind of have to ride and die with your guys, right? We can there are adjustments that you can make in lineups and things like that, but ultimately when it comes with Duren's involvement, Duren has been a very important piece for this team all year. He's a big part of the reason why that you got to 60 wins in the first seed. You have to let him play. You just have to hope that he can, whatever mental block he has or whatever he's not doing, can figure that out. But you're gonna have to ride or die with your guy and hope for the best. I think in that sense, obviously Paul Reed provided a great spark for the team in the moments that he did. I don't think that. I think that's a very micro issue of a macro problem for this team.
And that's what I've seen. I mean, even with like if Paul Reed gives the spark every once in a while, that's what this whole roster is. It seems like is guys that every once in a while provide a spark. There's like Jenkins. He kind of came out of nowhere, but then
He was awful in the Orlando series.
yeah, like it just was not. It was so hot and cold. Duncan Robinson. Oh my God, this guy like the Heat. Like he was like a liability, and for them, that's why they let him go so easily. And he came in and shot the lights out. 50% from three, I think, throughout this series at least. But still, not not enough, not consistent enough. And Tobias, we thought we really had something special there, and then these last 3 or 4 games just completely fell off, man. Like, and so there's no consistency whatsoever except for Cade, and then he himself you can't consistently be Superman, like. And I think we saw that tonight where everything just collapsed. Nobody had a good game tonight. Nobody. And you got guys like Karis LeVert and Marcus Sasser where you're hoping to depend on, and you simply can't. And then guess what? Cleveland, they all came to play tonight, man. They all showed up. Donovan Mitchell played probably his best game of the playoffs, and that dude's a baller, man. I never really watched as much Donovan Mitchell basketball as I have this past, 7 games, and that dude can play, man. And so but he's got guys around him that are consistent. As much as you hate, I can't stand watching James Harden play basketball, but
agreed.
It works. What he's doing works.
It worked this time. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, in the playoffs, notoriously, but in this series against the Pistons, the guy showed up. He showed up consistently for the most part as someone that the Cavs could depend on. Someone other
outside of game 1 where he basically single-handedly lost in the game in clutch time. But that's the James Harden experience, though. You take the elite playmaking and the shot creation, but then you also take the times where he's just going to single-handedly lose you a playoff game. So, it is what it is. James Harden has a very interesting career. Maybe that's a conversation for a different time, but it's a very interesting guy, to be honest with you.
It is quite the stat that they showed about him. The second most playoff games without a championship. He's sandwiched between Karl Malone and John Stockton. I thought that was kind of funny.
Doesn't he also have the record for like more playoff games with turnovers than field goals made or something? Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else, but I feel like I also saw something like that.
I wouldn't doubt it, man. But that's what you saw, though. But that's the thing that just baffles me about this whole situation is Game 6. Man, like Cleveland was in the exact same position. They had a closeout game at home, and they got ran out of their gym. And tonight we looked at a 100% completely different team. So all the things we can say about the Pistons and about Kiddo, he doesn't have any, scorers. He doesn't, the team are just a bunch of tryhards, and there's not enough talent there or whatever. But for them to actually win 60 games and then do what they did in Cleveland, when for all intents and purposes, they should have got blown out that game. So I'm just baffled. I'm baffled that I saw the team that I saw play on Friday, and then I saw the team that I saw play on Saturday. And we're looking at 4 different basketball teams between 2 teams in 2 games. And there's no way to wrap your head around it, man. What do you think about this, man?
Do you think the Cavs are good
to play this series?
I think the Cavs are obviously good, but I think that they just match up well enough to exploit some things that Detroit was lacking in, especially in the front court. For this game particularly, it didn't come up very big. It's just like Jared Allen and Evan Mobley played our front court completely off the floor, and you just can't and again, if you can't have a Cade Cunningham superhero game, which you cannot rely on for, consistently every game, because no one should be relied on in that way. Outside, we're talking about top 5 upper echelon guys. Like Cade's young too. We also got to keep in mind, like that's still a player that's consistently getting better. And was he 24, 25? Like, he's got time to grow. So he's not even technically in his like physical prime yet, considering
Yeah.
the NBA, right? So it's like, you know, the the Cavs are obviously good. I don't think there's anything to like take away from them or like feel like they got lucky. I think what happened is, to your point, Tom, Game 6 we came out fighting because we were fighting for our lives and we made it interesting. And I think we zapped ourselves of energy to get through Game 6 after having played 7 games where you were fighting for your life against Orlando as well. So it's like you cannot play that many elimination games on a team that's not constructed very well and think that you're going to like keep skating by against, because like what happened eventually you're going to run into a team where they're going to have energy, they're going to come ready to play, they're going to shoot well from the floor, they're not going to turn the ball over a bunch, and they're just going to abuse you. And that's what happened tonight. We just got abused by a team that was energetic, ready to play, and came ready to go, and we just weren't there. And it sucks, but that's why you're supposed to have home court and you're supposed to win. You're supposed to be winning these series in 5, 6 games and not going to 7 against everybody.
Yeah. Anthony, where the refs got a lot of talk, and they're what, man, like especially a couple games ago, man, like you, the Pistons are known for a physical style, grit and all that. But these refs, man, like maybe they weren't bad calls, but maybe it's just an indictment on the NBA as a whole, man. Because tonight, and there's been a lot of games, but especially tonight, you can't even get into the game as a fan, like, because there's a whistle every time down the court, man. And some of them are warranted, but a lot of them weren't. A lot of them were just like, especially when you get into hard and flopping all the time, man. This guy just, you breathe on the dude, he gets a foul, and I don't understand the love affair with Harden because his game is so ugly. He's hard to watch, and I think the refs tonight made the game difficult to watch. Now, perhaps it's because they were calling a tight game, but shouldn't it in Game 7 you like? Shouldn't it be the opposite? Like, I don't
I
know,
mean,
man. It was a tough watch tonight from that perspective.
yeah, but like we said from the beginning, they just didn't bring no heart. Like, I mean, we could blame the refs all we want, but at the end of the day, I just feel like they just didn't have no heart today. And with the Harden situation, I mean, that's what Cleveland brought him for, to be able to make that difference in these type of games. I mean, yes, some of those fouls were like, come on, bro. Like, could you have fought through it? Yes, but were those fouls? Yes. Were they tit tat fouls? I'm not disagreeing with that. I think the one like on Jenkins where he grabbed his arm, like, yeah. Could you have not called it? For sure. But was it a foul? Yes. Like, did he oversell it? 100%. But it was a foul. He did grab him for sure. So it's just like, but like I said, they just came out with zero heart. You can't put that blame on the refs. Not at least this game. Now there is some games where I do feel like Harden does get a lot of more extra calls. But I mean, that's what happens when you're a superstar. You get those calls, especially in the playoffs. That's what happens when you're a vet. You get those calls. That's the difference between the Cavs for us and where we are. We don't have no vet. Our vet's Tobias Harris. And no respect to Tobias Harris because he
Man, I don't know. I don't know.
I,
We keep losing Anthony, but
I think that to jump in while he reconnects about this referee thing, 2 things. Number one, everything he said was correct, right? These are fouls that the argument rather is not really like, is that a foul or not? It's more so, do you call that in a Game 7 of a playoff game? I think that when you're playing against James Harden, Dennis Schroeder, and Donovan Mitchell, the coaching point should be these guys are really good at selling contact, right? Selling any type of incidental contact. So you have to play discipline with your hands, right? Like, because anytime they feel like they want to get to the free throw line, right? Because they know that is good. It's an easy way to slow the game down and score points, right? And also, it lets you set up your half court defense, and the Pistons are terrible in half court. So now it's like it's a strategy focus that, yeah, absolutely, you should be focused and dialed in on as a team. Overall, from a product standpoint, I think the NBA refs need to get a little bit more aggressive about using the flopping technical for certain things, right? In the point in the play that Anthony mentioned with the Jenkins grabbing Harden's arm. The fact that he grabbed his arm and Harden threw his head back and fell to the ground, that's a flop, bro. Like, we can agree that that's a foul. You can't be grabbing dude's arms, but that's a flop, and you need to call that for being what it is. I think that you'll never really see at this point that part of the game in the NBA change until the refs show a willingness to that to start calling these flops out for when they're happening, right? Because it's like we already understand that the game is ref differently in the playoffs, right? We all agree that that's like one of those unspoken things in the NBA. It's like, all right, like we different rules in the playoffs, sure. But at the same time, if you're going to call a game like this, where it's going to be a tightly called game and you're going to be calling all these fouls, then to counteract that, you should say, hey, if you get contact, we're going to give you the calls for your contact. But if you get on the floor and start doing too much, we will hit you with those technicals for flopping, bro. Like, it's got to be, you have to match. There has to be some consistency there, because then that's what creates like the issues. Also, to Anthony's point, the refereeing was kind of like to me a non-factor in this whole situation for the most part. But I think overall, for the sake of the game, there just needs to be more consistency there about punishing offensive players for overdoing it. Do I think that, and what I'll say about this is, because he made the comment about calls and superstars, right? Like, you'll find few bigger Steph Curry fans on the planet than me, so I know all about like a superstar not getting a fair whistle. I completely understand that. A lot of this stuff is happening off ball as well. And there's like this overemphasis on like guys driving and layups and contact and stuff like that, but there's none of the emphasis on, and even for the screeners too, right? Because we know we see like 25 illegal screens per team every night as well, right? The off-ball play does not get enough focus from an officiating standpoint. And overall, reffing is bad in the NBA, but I think the players have min-maxed the game so much that it's just going to be that way until they just hammer down on it.
Yeah, I don't know what can change, but I watch a lot of hoops, man, and it's getting harder and harder to watch. I can see why fans are not watching as much in the regular season. I mean, you got the stars, and the league's always going to be there, like, but people are getting frustrated because the game itself, it's becoming not fun to watch when players are not looking to score; they're looking to get fouled, and then on top of the flopping, it just like Shy, Gilgeous-Alexander just won a second MVP, and this dude is notorious for it, man. He's not single-handedly ruining the game, but to praise this type of basketball where you're just looking for whistles, and it's happening so much, and then you see these guys, and it happened even tonight. Even Van Gundy was like, well, the Pistons, they gotta stop standing there crying for a foul and get back down court. Like, how much of that do we see? And it's been going on, but it just seems to be getting worse, where it's a lot less just fundamental basketball versus theatrics and whistles, and it's hard to watch. And tonight was a good example of that, where like the Pistons' whole performance was disgusting and just lackluster. But to see them in a team that prides themselves on grit and hustle, there was just none of it tonight. And this was a factor, man. This whole thing, it's, I think, plaguing the NBA from an entertainment standpoint. Like, people who, like, this was a game 7 to go to the Eastern Conference Finals. People were tuning in for this one that were casual basketball fans, and the product they saw probably bored them out of their minds, because I'm a freaking diehard, and I was bored out of my mind. I couldn't believe what I was watching, and it was abysmal. So I don't know, like, the health of the league, something's got to be done, but I don't know what, other than just, like you said, like, hammering down on the flopping, which they said they were going to do anyway, and just finding a way to not have so many whistles. It's like in football, man. Like, you could call holding every play, really, but Same
Well, I
thing.
think that
There's contact in basketball. You don't have to call every single time one guy touches another. Especially when they score the basket on a layup. Like you go in for a layup and you barely get touched and you make the basket. Is that something that really needs to be called? Nope.
I think that the it's the inconsistency, right? Like you just every the problem with the NBA from that standpoint is that every game you watch gets ref differently. And like I
Yeah.
understand that that's kind of like the nature of a sport where you have a bunch of different crews who are refing these games or are kind of looking for certain things. But the issue is that it creates a more negative experience because you just don't know what to expect because you don't know what they're going to get let go of, right? So to draw a parallel to the NFL like you did, right? Sometimes you'll watch a game and you'll see basically receivers and cornerbacks killing each other out there, and there'll be no PI holding none of that the entire game. And then sometimes you'll see there, and if the cornerback even breathes the wrong way, then it's going to be PI, right? Like it creates inconsistency. So as a fan, you don't really know what product you're watching, right? All of this is a result of the analytics of how basketball should be played really taking over the game, right? What do we know? You want layups, free throws, and 3-pointers. That's all you want at this point in the NBA, right? The worst thing you can do on a court is take a long two at this point from an analytical standpoint. So it's like it's an evolution of the game, and it's one of those things to where the officiating has to evolve with the game as well, where it has to be more consistent around, hey, the game has changed, therefore we have to call things a certain way, and we have to just stop giving things away, right? I think personally, my biggest thing and what I've always like kind of hammering on about is I think that you got to stop rewarding guys for just throwing the ball in the air. I think if you get quote unquote fouled and that shot you put up looks like it made no effort to go towards the basket at all, you should not get rewarded for that because to me that's clearly that you were looking for contact, right? It's one thing if you get fouled in the process of a gather or taking a shot or anything like that, but you're seeing situations where guys are just like throwing the ball up in the air, saying it's a shot and getting 2 free throws. I think that's something that definitely needs to change. And I think that also, again, it's the emphasis on, hey, we're gonna actually do something about flopping in a meaningful way so that we can stop this, right? Because this goes back to James. We bring up James Harden again, but it goes back to Harden back in like he everything that people are mad at Shea for in 2026, people were mad at James Harden for in 2017. Like it's the same. It's the same. And people. He got a nice nickname that I'm pretty sure I'm not allowed to say on Facebook Live, but you can all figure that out. Like I remember that. I'm old enough to remember the things that people said about James Harden at that time. This isn't new. It's just the evolution of the game, and the refs and the rules have to catch up to the way the game is changing. The NFL does the same thing, right? We got when Peyton Manning had a moan because he couldn't get past the AFC Championship game, and they changed all of the pass interference rules. The NFL changed to adapt to a more downfield passing game. The NBA has to do the same thing.
Yeah. Well, all right, Kendall. We lost Anthony here, so we can bring this thing home. I do want to get your thoughts on the post or the off season.
Mm-hmm.
I think we really, I mean, we all saw what needs to be done, but it's just so interesting to me because this team right now at this point in time, it's hard to forget that at this time 2 years ago, they only had 14 wins and they were an absolute disaster with no hope in sight. Fast forward 2 years, now we're pissed off that we're not making the Eastern Conference Finals. Pretty dramatic turnaround, but you see these flaws, man. The name of the game isn't to just be okay. It's to win championships. So now we see that we have a team that can be built around, but we also have a team that is Jekyll and Hyde, man. Like you don't know what's going to show up on any given night, and you can't win a championship like that. So this offseason, what are you looking for this offseason?
I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think we're both pretty set on you don't give Duran a max deal, but that's going to have to be looked at. I think the clear cut thing is you got to find a consistent number two. How do you find it, and what are you willing to give up for it?
Yeah, I think that the offseason is always tricky because you never know like who's going to re-sign with who in certain situations. I think a situation to pay attention to is the Lakers because depending on if LeBron resigns or not, there's pieces on that roster that I think that may become like movable for the Lakers or players who may be looking to go somewhere else to make a really interesting situations other places. My biggest thing is like you said, you can't give Jalen Duren the max. He played himself out of the max. If he's upset about it, well, only has himself to blame because he was terrible for 13 of 14 playoff games this season. So that's just how that goes. Your second best player can be Tobias Harris at this point in time. It's just not sustainable for a year. Secondary playmaking, consistent 3-point shooting for sure. You just have to space the court. You're looking for spacing and creation, and that's every team's looking for spacing and creation, right? But that's a hard thing to find. But like even the stuff that like a guy like Dennis Schroeder was able to do for Cleveland as far as just opening the court up because he can get to the bucket himself and he can free guys up by drawing attention and requiring help. That's what you're necessarily looking for. So I think Jenkins' development is a big piece of that, depending on he can have a great summer and come back and be a bigger contributing piece, which I think is going to be very helpful for the team. But yeah, I think that this is one of those things where it's like losing Beasley to gambling hurts. You know what I'm saying? Like that's one of those things that we don't talk about anymore because it was so long ago. But that definitely like kind of changes the way that the season probably played out for him. But you need space. And you need secondary creation, and that's essentially what you're looking for. And then before we came on air, I was talking to Anthony and I was talking about like I think you got to blow it up. I'm being a little facetious. I don't think you have to necessarily blow it up per se. You don't really want to blow up a 60-win first seed, but at the same time, when you look at this roster, it kind of looks like you might need to blow it up a little bit. That's the biggest thing. I think obviously you want to build around Cade and Duren and kind of take it from there. And then to me, at that point. And Asor. Other than that, most of you are expendable, and Asor has to get a corner three this offseason. Undeniably has to find a way to get a corner three, or he just cannot play as much as he does. There's just no way that having that many people on the court who cannot shoot is sustainable on the current NBA system. You just cannot play that way in the postseason, at least.
It's crazy to think about how, like, when you look at like what happened tonight and what happened a few times when they lost games in the playoffs. How did this team even win 60 games? Like, when you really think about it, man, like it's remarkable because they don't have any consistent, and they can't shoot the three as a team. They're like, I think they were like. They weren't the worst, but they were definitely in the
close
bottom.
to it being the worst. Yeah. Well, I think it's like Cleveland looked bad in the Jason Tatum misses 3/4 of the year. Philly looked like a mess to start the season. Cleveland didn't look great. New York didn't look great. I think a lot of things kind of fell in line to give the Pistons 60 wins, but I think that it showed, and especially when they played some of the teams out west, like when they would play like a San Antonio or OKC, that there's levels to it in the NBA, right? And they're not quite there yet. And I think that obviously, like, it's hard to not be super dramatic, right? 60 wins, first seed, you lose in the 7 in the second round. Okay. It's not a failure, right? Because last year we lost the first round in 6 games, right? So you completed the mission. You got better. That's what you want to do in the NBA, right? You want to get further than you got the year before. So I can't necessarily be like, this year was a failure. It absolutely was not. But when you look at going from like a scrappy team to like, that's like a problem to like a perennial contender, there's things that have to change. What you don't want to be is the 2015 Hawks, right? Where you won 60 games, you jumped out to the first seed, and then you got pounded by Cleveland, and no one even remembers you except for you lost you lost to Cleveland, right? Like, you want to continue to be at the top of the table. then you're going to have to make some changes because I think this season was fortuitous in a lot of ways, but the roster still has holes that need to be corrected, especially if not only if you want to compete in the East, but if you think you're going to be able to beat OKC or San Antonio, even Houston next year in 7 games. You got to some things have to change.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Well, Kendall, I think we can wrap this up, man. This was a painful one, man. I'm not gonna lie, man. Like we said, man. Like this team, they just perhaps they overachieved, and this letdown shouldn't be taken so harshly. But when you're in it, man, like when it's game 7, you got it at home, and you just did what you did in game 6. Like this letdown is gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt for the fans. It better hurt for this team. Again, I don't know how you can like answer, like if you're the players, like how you answer these questions, like how do you go out there and answer the question of it didn't look like you guys played with any heart tonight?
Right.
Like how do you answer it? But it'll be interesting to see once I get off here. I want to try to watch some of these interviews or whatever and see what these guys have to say, because I mean you can't say much, but
I think you have to own it, right? Don't go out there and say we didn't play with any heart. That's a little embarrassing. But you just have to say like, hey, we did not play up to our potential tonight, and we got played off the court, and that's unacceptable, and that can't happen again, right? Like I think that again, this team, for all intents and purposes, this season was a success. Like you got to the next round, you won more games. You got some flexibility going to next year, not only with cap but with assets. You can make some things happen. There are things you can do. But I think ultimately, you just have to have the understanding that this was not good enough, right? This is not a situation in which you could be stagnant. I think there's great energy in the city around our sports teams right now. Maybe not the Tigers, but there's great energy overall about like what our teams can be. And I think that what's also nice is I think that Detroit looks like a desirable location for players to want to play here, right? And I think that there's definitely a chance for the team to even go even further, especially with maybe a little bit of turmoil in Boston between the two J's. There might be an issue there. There's some things that could definitely happen next season to where you could kind of make that next leap. But it starts with like getting better in the offseason and then hopefully not giving Jalen Duren a max. It will be all right.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. We're gonna see because there's a lot that can be done. Between free agency and trades. I mean, I think Trajan Langdon. I think he. I wonder if he's wishing that he did make a move at the deadline. But you had to know that this whole season was. I mean, you got to take your opportunities when you're there, and when you're the number 1 seed in a down East, like. I don't know if enough was done to take this shot here, but perhaps like this is just a part of a process, and whatever did happen this year was just a stepping stone either way. It's a little scary to think about because there's teams in the East that are just going to get better. Like if Boston does figure it out, they got a solid team. New York, is they've been playing lights out lately, and they're probably going to be just as good next year. There's going to be some real competition. Orlando, I mean, we saw what they did. We lose to them if they don't have that absolutely historic meltdown that they had.
And Wagner got hurt too.
Man, like we probably should have lost that series. So Orlando is going to be better. This team, like this was it was a down year for the East, and I don't think it's going to be the same next year. So the Pistons, they're going to have to make some moves, and it's going to have to be, in the shooting. Now, how you get a guy that can raise the level of talent without disrupting this team bond and this chemistry and this defensive grit that they have shown throughout the entire season, except for some nights, including tonight. We'll see, like, if that gets disrupted or not. But who knows, man? What we do know is we need more shooting, and we need a second. We need a Robin to Cade's Batman. And I think Trajan, I think he'll go out and figure it out because you can't sit here at the table with half a meal, like
Yeah.
that's out right now. We were 2 years ago we're fighting for scraps. Now we're sitting at the table. You don't want to get back up and start fighting for scraps again, which
100%.
a couple move like this team, if they don't get better, they could actually like regress and just get worse. Like if they stand pat, this team is a middle of the road East team next year.
Yeah, no, that would be an absolute failure of an offseason if this roster looks mostly the same as it did this year. I think that you gotta look at it and think to yourself like that 60 games is not real. That's not like a sustainable pace. This roster is not a 60 game winning caliber roster.
Yeah.
And I think that you delude yourself into believing that, then like you said, this team will regress back to the middle of the pack, and that's just another year wasted. To be honest with you, I think I agree. I think things will be done. I don't necessarily know if it's like a big splash move. Like I know that we talked at the beginning of the year about Booker and KD and these guys like that. I don't know if it's necessarily something like that. Although I do think Booker to Detroit is very interesting.
Oh yeah, that'd be fantastic. Another name I want to run past here that I keep hearing is Laurie Markkinen. What do you think? People say he'd be like a perfect fit.
I think Laurie would be great. I'm a big fan of Laurie Markkinen. My other rooting interests also, I really wanted Laurie Markkinen to end up on the other team I root for, but I think Laurie would be awesome because he provides a lot of what you're looking for. He can space the floor. He's another big to play complementary besides Durant. He just helps open things up. That's what before we got on, I was like kind of looking at some of the unrestricted free agents just to see kind of like stuff that was going to be out there going against this off season. I think that a guy like Rui Hachimura, depending on if the Lakers offer him, because they have his bird rights, we'll see if they offer him a deal or not, or even Vucevic, another guy who I think could end up being a good piece, a little older, so I don't love that, but just something to open the floor up and create like another dynamic to this team that I think is missing other than like, hey, Cade, bail us out of this situation. You know what I'm saying? Like we need to be able to generate half court offense consistently, and I think guys like that can help do that while also not necessarily being a situation where you might have to blow up the whole team to make that happen in the same way you might have to end up with a guy like Devin Booker on your team, right? You got to kind of sell everything to get to Book. But there's movement out there in different players to where I think that there's things that this team can do. Obviously, we got to wait for the season to end and we got to actually get to the off-season piece of it. But there's a path here. We just got to find it, and we have to be aggressive in finding it and not get left behind.
Yeah, you're right about that. Well, all right, Kendall, my friend, thanks for joining me. Talk some hoops on this sad day. It's a very sad day. I was so looking forward to Pistons Knicks. I did not want basketball season to end, but so it goes. All right. Well, bummer about Anthony. He tried. We'll give him an A for effort there, but apparently StreamYard doesn't like iPhones. Apparently,
right.
But hopefully next time, because I definitely want to talk some more hoops again before the finals. Because man, I don't. There's still some good hoops to be played, man. I don't know.
This OKC San Antonio series is going to be electric. This is going to be must-see TV every night for sure. And even the Knicks Cleveland series, I know we feel a little bad about it, but that series should be interesting too. But I do feel like whoever ends up coming out of the West is probably going to be your champion this year. So we'll see if OKC has them to go back to back. But San Antonio's been giving them belt all season, so we'll find out.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun series. So still some basketball to be played, just not for our Pistons. So we'll have to keep an eye on how things play out in the offseason. Hopefully root for some exciting roster movement, get Cade some serious help, and see how far we can go. Because there's one thing that's for sure, and Detroit basketball is back to being relevant, at least.
Absolutely.
Man, and people talking about it, man. Cause I'm a diehard man, and it gets tough, man. Them lean years, there were a lot of them, man, and
There were a lot of them, yeah.
man, I was like, oh my god, but for them to come so far so quickly, it, it it was fun to watch, man. It was a fun season. It was just fun to have meaningful Piston games again and have people actually talk about them and know guys on the roster and like let alone make noise in the playoffs and all that. So hopefully we have a solid off season and bring it back next year. But all right, Kendall. I want to thank you. I want to thank Anthony for the little bit he was on here. We will be doing this again. First time on You Tell Me, though, Kendall. You were a friend of the show, the Detroit Sports Sit Down in the past. So it's good to have you back talking on the podcast again. We switched things up a little bit though here with this new one called You Tell Me. But still fun talking sports with you, my friend.
Hey, Tom, I appreciate the invite. I appreciate a chance to get to talk to everybody. Follow all the socials, support the pages, support the pods. The city's back. We're back. Everyone's back. We're up now. You know what I'm saying? Everyone's on notice. We lost tonight, but we're up forever. Let's get it.
Yeah, you got it, buddy. Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tom Murphy Jr., and you have been listening to You Tell Me.